Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello, and welcome to Mary vs. the Movies with your host, Mary Jones.
And Dennis Ling.
And originally we were going to do Moonraker.
And we still will.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get to it very soon, actually. But sad news, obviously you've already heard, David Lynch passed away. And we thought, we had a couple of his movies on our list because there are a couple of movies of his that I either have not seen the entirety of, which would be The Elephant Man. I've seen some of The Elephant Man. I haven't seen the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not for any reason. It's just like I caught it on cable and I just never circled around back to it.
That was definitely a thing just kind of lurking on cable.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So we are going to do Elephant Man at some point. And I'm looking forward to that one. Again, it's just something like, I just never got around to it. But the other film we're going to do, I have studiously avoided because I'm terrified of it. Eraserhead. Yay! The scary baby movie.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I know about it. So in college, look, it's not like I haven't seen a lot of David Lynch. I mean, we've done 2 films of his for the show. We did Dune and Wild at Heart.
Yep.
And Dune is interesting. It's not entirely successful, but I kind of like it more than the Villeneuve films.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like, there's some good stuff in those movies, but like, there's something so weird about the original, his version of Dune that I really love.
I like what the new ones are doing. I just feel like they're very different.
They are very different. And maybe it's not fair to compare them, but anyway.
And what I like about Dune is that it has a different color palette than anything.
Yeah.
Like in the 80s. Like it's very rich and, reds and blues and that kind of thing. And it's anything except for maybe Flash Gordon.
Yeah. And I wish more movies looked like...
or maybe Lair of the White Worm or something in times.
And the thing is, I wish more science fiction films felt like those movies instead of like the dreary and drab.
Yeah. Obviously, Fifth Element later.
Yeah.
But at the time, like, science fiction was blue, brown planets, and gray. Mm-hmm. Gray ships, and mostly just gray ships.
And frankly, the Villeneuve versions of Dune look like that.
Yeah, well, they're kind of washed out.
Yeah.
They have that kind of Marvel washed out look.
Everything does these days.
At least the early Marvel.
It's why I really don't like a lot of films these days visually. But anyway, we're getting way off track. And of course, we saw Wild at Heart, and I absolutely fell in love with that. I think that's an amazing film, and
and you did see Blue Velvet before.
And that's the thing. Like, I've seen Blue Velvet. I've seen Mulholland Drive. Look, when I was 11 years old, Twin Peaks hit television, and my mom would go to bed early because she was a nurse and had to get up and drive, I don't know how many miles it was from, Boyertown to Phoenixville, but she'd have to get up very early and drop us off at like the YMCA or, so she didn't stay up late watching television. And frankly, Twin Peaks is not the kind of show she would have watched. What I would do is I would either sneak this little television we had up into my bedroom, or frankly, if she was just out, like asleep, I would go down and watch Twin Peaks. So 11 years old and I'm watching Twin Peaks. And it was revelatory because it was like, oh, television can be weird and cool, and this is great.
And the thing about Twin Peaks is that there's times when it's just funny.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with David Lynch. His style just changes and changes. And
there are times it is funny.
Yeah.
And sometimes like it's the laughter of being unsettled, but sometimes it's just legitimately funny.
Yeah.
And I've seen Fire Walk with Me, so like I know Twin Peaks. I know a lot of his stuff, but I haven't seen everything. And I've specifically avoided Eraserhead ever since I heard of it. Because everything anyone ever told me about it is like, oh, that movie will mess you up, man. That is like, it's the freakiest movie I've ever seen. And that baby is like one of the scariest things you'll ever, you're going to be disturbed. It's going to change your life forever. And so like, I avoided it. I was just like, I don't know if I can handle that.
Do you want to watch Dead Ringers instead?
Well, that's the other movie I've avoided for kind of the same reasons, honestly. And I have a feeling they're not unrelated in a way.
I think I saw them both around the same time.
Oh, God.
So this is around when I met Bob. He was a huge fan of Von Oliver, the designer of those 4AD album covers.
Uh-huh.
You know, like So Dead Can Dance and Cocteau Twins. And also there's this band, His Name Is Alive. They had a video directed by the brothers Quay. I watched like a whole, probably videotape of those videos. And at the same time, I saw Eraserhead. They're all kind of connected to me. And the thing is, I just assumed, this is all from Poland.
What?
Because we've watched, those animated shorts.
Well, that's true.
And it's always the Polish ones that are just like these weird industrial, bleak, cold. Polish ones, it's scary, but it's like, at least you have the cold comfort of misery.
So it's funny that you think of Poland and whatnot because, so we're watching Eraserhead, right?
Yep.
Now, David Lynch, he was from where? The Great Plains? North Dakota
somewhere.
or something like that? Yeah. But he went to school in Philadelphia. He went
Actually, I think he was born in Missoula.
Missoula, Montana?
Yeah.
Okay. But he went to college in Philadelphia.
65 to 70.
Yeah, so he was, let's see, what was that? The Academy of Fine Arts?
It was PCA, Philadelphia College of Art.
The point is Philadelphia. And he lived in two neighborhoods. Cowell Hill, which is pretty industrial. A lot of warehouses down there. Still some warehouses down there, although they're all being turned into condos for people who have more money than sense. And Fairmount. And here's the thing. I'm from Fairmount.
Yeah.
I lived in Fairmount from 1979 until 1989. So the first 10 years of my life. My father grew up in Fairmount. He grew up on 25th Street, just like I grew up on 25th Street. I grew up at 744 North 25th Street. My dad was at 762, which was one block up. And both of these houses are on either side of Aspen Street. Okay. David Lynch, in the 1960s and early 70s, I guess, or something like that, he lived at the 2400 block of Aspen Street, which means he was literally like around the corner. If he had stayed in the neighborhood, and it's good that he didn't because he had an actual career, but if he had stayed in the neighborhood, he would have lived right by the little video rental place that I lived kind of catty corner to. So
he probably had to walk around your dad to get to a seat on the SEPTA bus.
That's exactly where I'm going with this, because his whole thing about Philadelphia is, he would say it was like kind of this terrifying experience of like
a hellhole.
A hellhole, rats and garbage and soot everywhere, and the miserable working class. And I'm reading about this, and I realize he's describing my dad. As far as I know, my dad was a great guy, but I understand what he's talking about, right? Yeah. Because it was still a grimy place to live when I was a kid. It was
a grimy place to live. A lot of factories had just closed.
Yeah.
This was Philadelphia on the way, like, it had been on the way down for a long time. But, like, this was, like, a precipitous drop.
Yeah, exactly.
And Rizzo is the mayor.
He was the police commissioner.
Yeah.
So that's bad.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like just a place of misery and industrial hell. It's like a terrible. I had fun living there, but
the thing is that I heard him describe it, and at one point he says there was no graffiti, but it was just filled with darkness and grit, grime.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that I feel like that our Philadelphia, the one that we remember, is 70s Philadelphia.
Uh-huh.
So there is graffiti, but it has this weird, this is post Flyers, like the Broad Street Bullies.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
where are you going with this? I'm
just saying, I feel like that we see a slightly different Philly in our heads than that. I'm just saying, I don't know if we would recognize the 1960s Philly.
I don't know. I can see pictures from like relatives living at that time, and I don't know. I don't think it's a lot of stuff happened. There was a lot of demolishing of old buildings and whatnot, and you have that whole nonsense about urban renewal that was mostly about knocking down neighborhoods and putting in highways. So, there was a lot of destruction at the time, and as you pointed out, a lot of the factories had left. You still had the Navy Yard. And a lot of the men in my neighborhood were stevedores. They worked down at the docks. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people had worked at like Bud Factory and the Bud Company, just like steel and stuff. And these places were all closing up. And it happened to my own family. My dad bounced from job to job when I was young, and so I'm always amazed that he said that Philadelphia was a huge inspiration for Eraserhead. So I'm kind of afraid to find what I'm about to watch here, like, and I'm so curious, but I'm also like, there's a reason I've been avoiding this, is because not that I thought he was trying to indict my home or anything like that. I don't think that at all, but
I do feel like it's a little bit of that whole Yoda, like, mud hole, slimy, my home this is.
Well, yeah, I mean, a little bit of that, I guess. I mean, yeah, you know what? Yeah, my home this is.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sucks. What's your point?
But he also talked about a garbage strike at one point.
Oh, I know all about.
You have a story about that.
Oh my God, yes. I don't know what the whole deal with the garbage strike was exactly, but yeah, my mom's friends who lived up the street, the neighbors, they were part of some sort of action against the garbage. I don't know what was going on with that. All I know is garbage was ending up in the streets. People would throw out their garbage. The garbage men were on a strike. People would throw the garbage into the streets just to kind of I don't know. People were all mad at each other about everything.
Oh, I just remember the kitty cat story.
Oh, no, that's a later story. That's from the 80s.
But from a different garbage strike.
No, that wasn't a garbage strike.
Oh,
that was a sewer being replaced.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, rats got into our house. And my sister, who was very, very small at the time, I mean, I'm talking, she was probably 2 or 3, probably 3. She told my mom, hey, we got a kitty cat. And my mom was like, we don't have a cat. What are you talking about? And then she looks in the living room, because she was out in the kitchen, and she sees a big rat. And yeah, so I remember as a kid, they would shove, towels under the doors to keep the rats out and stuff. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, my childhood was a very loving family. We didn't have a lot of money at the time, and there were rats in the house. So I don't know, man. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Eraserhead. I don't know much about this film. I know it's in black and white. I know there's that dude with his hair standing on end who looks a little bit like Tim Robbins. Not Tim Robinson, Tim Robbins.
Right.
And I know there's a freaky baby or something in this.
Yeah.
And it's basically him. Lynch was making a film about his feelings about fatherhood.
So we found out about David Lynch's passing as we arrived at Disney World. We were staying at the Polynesian Village. I was just thinking about, being in this place it's kind of like fake, it seems not have nothing to do with David Lynch at all. But at the same time, it has that kind of weird fake plastic American veneer that he seemed to always go back to. Oh,
I don't think they're unrelated, actually, in a very weird and roundabout way.
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. To find out that David Lynch has passed away while you're in Disney World, looking at fake landscapes and fake cities and fake countries, even.
It feels like, to me, Disney World feels like the largest mini golf course in the world.
Okay, yeah.
Everything has that kind of look. Everything's kind of small, looks like what it's supposed to, but it's actually smaller. And
yeah, I mean, we were in Epcot, and you go to their Italy pavilion, and it's Venice, but everything's scaled down in a weird way. And we had just been in Venice, and so it was a very surreal sort of thing of I'm seeing this thing that's familiar, but it's wrong. And I just kept thinking about this philosopher Jean Baudrillard. Probably said his name wrong, but anyway, he has a whole thing about simulations and simulacrum, and yeah, that's Disney World, all right. I find it fascinating, but yeah, it did seem wrong, but also right to be sitting around eating dinner in Disney World and finding out David Lynch had died. I'm like, yeah, I don't know why this feels right. So, look, normally we do our 3 questions.
Yep.
Is there a dog? I don't know. Is there a love triangle? Man, I doubt it. Is there a death? Man, maybe. I don't know.
If there is a death, do you think you'll know it?
No. That's the thing. The thing about Lynch is it's a mystery. It's supposed to be a mystery. You are not supposed to sit there and try to puzzle everything out. It is meant to be something on a deeper psychological level. It doesn't always make sense. It's surrealism. He is like the great surrealist filmmaker that America finally produced.
With him, death is definitely not the worst thing in the world.
No.
There's just, he just can find dread in anything.
Right, but also, in his films anyway, death isn't even the end.
Yeah.
There's something else, there's something weirder out there than death. And so if there's a death in this film, I don't think that means somebody's dead. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm excited. No, that's a lie. I'm terrified to watch this. I don't know what I'm doing to myself. This is going to ruin my brain. Shall we go watch it?
Yeah, sure. So in the Hal Hartley movie, Simple Men, there's a line, I want what you have, I want adventure and romance. And that character responds to him and says, there is no adventure, there is no romance, there's only trouble and desire.
Yeah.
And this movie reminded me of that.
Well,
I just feel like for Henry is the guy asking, saying, like, I want romance, I want adventure, and it's just trouble and desire.
I don't know if Hal Hartley was influenced by David Lynch.
I feel like anyone after him is influenced somewhere.
Yes. Yes. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, Lynch is one of those guys who, much like John Ford, who he portrayed in a film, he's one of those foundational figures of American film, even though he came along so late in the game compared to a lot of the other ones, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not entirely fair, because he is a contemporary of Spielberg, and Lucas and those guys. Although he's so completely out of left field compared to them, it's like just a completely different planet.
Yeah.
And even though they
are
coming
from a different direction.
That's exactly.
They
yes.
are film school guys. He's art school guy.
No, he was a painter.
Yeah.
You know, I was reading something about Lynch saw film as a way to take painting even further.
Yeah.
And that completely makes sense watching this.
Yeah, I feel like this movie more than any, it feels like that.
I mean, I think you can see that in his other work.
Yeah.
But, this is essentially, it is a movie in that these are moving images, but these are images. Mm-hmm. And he is very much an imagistic filmmaker, and he even in this, his first full-length film, it's right there.
Like, you could almost say that he's taking situations and then doing paintings of how those situations make him feel.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie is. And there's sometimes when nobody knows what he meant.
Yeah.
Including him.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need a puzzle box.
Yeah.
It's not a puzzle box,
Mm-hmm.
So this was messed up.
Yeah.
And that's the kindest way I can put it. Let me just say, look, did I get a lot out of watching this? Absolutely. Do I still think David Lynch is an incredible filmmaker? Yes. Do I think this is a good film? Oh, I'm kind of amazed reading the backlash to it when it came out, and people just saying, oh, this is, garbage. This is, just weird for the sake of weird. This is, there was a lot of people who hated this film.
Yeah.
Like, the critics hated it when it came out, and I'm kind of surprised, because I do think it's brilliant. It's also really messed up, right?
And then looking at later reviews of his films, it's a lot like Wes Anderson, where once something becomes slightly more mainstream, then everything's compared to that. So like Grand Budapest Hotel is his Blue Velvet or something.
Wow, I feel like do I want to unpack that? No, but. I'm also intrigued by your idea that Grand Budapest Hotel is like Wes Anderson's most mainstream film. Might be my favorite film of his. Not because it's mainstream, but because it's basically like just a Lubitsch film.
I think what it is that Ray Fiennes didn't really fall into the Wes Anderson character.
Not at all. But let's not go off into a whole...
Sorry, yeah.
Because honestly, I could spend an hour talking about Grand Budapest Hotel. But so as far as this film goes, one thing that really gets me is this does not feel like the 1970s as a film.
And it did take 5 years to make, so...
Yeah, so I mean, if he started in like 72
yeah,
or 71, 72, and it was all filmed in California, actually, at the American Film Institute, I think.
Yeah.
the AFI, so headed by George Stevens Jr. We had brought up George Stevens Sr. last week on Boys from Brazil, but his son was the head of the AFI, and so I'm always intrigued by the people who gave Lynch a hand in becoming a filmmaker in terms of like funding him and stuff. So George Stevens, that Jr., that's interesting to me. Mel Brooks, that's very interesting to me. Having said that, I understand what he means when he says he was inspired by Philadelphia, though, because of the bleak industrial environment that is in this film. Yeah, no, fair enough. He's not wrong.
and I've been to Missoula, Montana, and I imagine if that's what you know, and then you're in Philadelphia, like, yeah, it would be weird.
Well, what's Missoula like? I've never been to Montana.
So it's like a little town on a mountain and nothing else. The hills are alive, green mountains everywhere.
Weird.
Yeah, like the town is really small, and I know he moved somewhere else, I think, after Missoula, but like, at least my impression of Missoula is like, yeah, there's nothing else here. A one road in, one road out type of thing. And maybe that's wrong, but that's what it felt like.
Well, when were you in Missoula?
I was in Missoula 1996. So
jump back like 30 years.
Yeah.
20 years even.
Less.
Yeah, whatever.
It
was.
I mean, there'd be less there.
Yeah, exactly. So you're probably, your impression is not wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I can imagine how Philadelphia would be a huge shock to somebody. And again, like I said, okay, I get it. Yeah, it is. It can be very grim. I know exactly what Cal Hill is like, and that is, even now it's not fun to walk around.
But another thing, and we've seen this ourselves, where we're used to 300-year-old buildings.
Yeah,
they're all over the place around here, and in Europe, they're like, yeah, whatever. But in America, like that is as old as it gets, pretty much, except in some places like Florida and stuff. But
and we're discounting. I mean, look, when you get into like Mayan structures and stuff, like if you want to talk about North American in general, I mean,
But I'm mostly talking about homes that people live in.
Yeah. Okay.
And so like we had some friends come up from North Carolina,
yeah.
South Carolina. And they were freaked out by like the old floors and like everything just looked rickety to them. And they were like, "We're gonna fall through the floor and where we're staying," because they were staying in this like 200-year-old, 300-year-old, who knows?
No, it was at least a 300-year-old Trinity building, and a Trinity is just a type of house in Philadelphia. They probably have it like.
And they're like, "You could see through to the basement over there," and we're like, "Yeah."
Yeah,
we know.
It's called wood floors, and it's got gaps. That's just how it works, man. Like our house had that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it would freak out people from other parts of the United States to be in a place where everything's kind of old and falling apart.
And also like the heaters, like all the banging and knocking that goes on with these ancient heaters that are in these buildings, like. Yeah, we're used to it.
Like that is still our daily life.
Yeah.
That's normal.
Sloshing around
like the radiators in this movie.
Yeah.
Not even getting into the woman who lives in the radiator, which is such a strange
a different thing.
That's a whole different thing. But just the existence of radiators in your house, in wherever you're living. And I realize in newer places they just don't have that, but to me that's just not weird.
Yeah.
Also, it's very convenient because you can dry your socks on there. And at one point he takes off his socks and he does it. I'm just like, yeah, man, I've done that.
But I could see how like he'd hear that thing like, oh, you can dry your socks on there. He's like, oh, well, that's a useful thing, and then he does it. But then like it's the noise.
Yeah.
Like there's so much noise in a city like that.
Yeah.
Like, just weird noises that you're like, where are these coming from?
And we don't live in the city anymore, but we live in an old house out in the outer suburbs, and it's still like you hear weird knocking and noises in the house and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that is just like a feature of old places, is you just have this stuff that feels haunted in a way because there are noises that are happening that are not human.
Yeah.
Or they don't, they're not obviously being made by a person sitting in that room. And I guess that would freak people out if they didn't grow up with that, you know? But anyway, so what I was saying was, this is not a film that looks like it's from the 70s. And part of that is, he has that whole kind of 1950s aesthetic in terms of how people are dressed and how people are, walking around. It reminds me, of sort of the weirder films of the 50s in the, something like Gun Crazy, where, you have that kind of stilted acting and whatnot, which is, not something you see anymore. And when you see Lynch do it, like, I understand what he's doing, what he's evoking, and I think people who didn't grow up watching old media might find it just really strange and like, why is everybody acting weird? And I'm just like, well, that's just how people used to act, right?
But also kind of the handmade quality of everything.
Yes.
Felt more like German expressionism, like 20s.
Yes. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, so it doesn't feel like a film from the 70s, right? It feels like a mashup of, the 50s, like I'm saying, like kind of weird stuff from the 50s, not even noir, but like some noir, but going into like just the weird B movies of the 50s, right? But at the same time, the aesthetics of this film were so adopted by the late 80s into the early 90s, and I didn't even know that growing up, that I'm watching this and I'm just like, well, this looks like everything I watched on MTV. Yeah. Earlier you brought up like the Brothers Quay and all that stuff, but this is where they're all pulling from. They're all obviously, but I didn't know that, is what I'm saying. I didn't realize just to what extent the 90s were Lynch's decade, just in terms of aesthetics and how much came ultimately from him. And it's not just because of like Twin Peaks, but it's because of Eraserhead, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that until I watched this film. And I'm watching this and I'm just going, oh, that's where everything I saw as a teenager came from.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me, that like, it took a while. It took like 15 years really to, filter through into the pop culture, but it was there. I still don't know how he got to make Twin Peaks, him and Mark Frost. No, I'm serious, because even if you look at like Blue Velvet, that's a weird film. Why did ABC sign off on this? I mean, thank God they did, but it's still amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that also has the same sort of like weird aesthetics and stilted, acting styles and all the rest of it. But like watching this, like aside from the fact that like it just looks good, it looks sharp. The type of film that he's using is just, it's black and white, and there's a sharpness to the film that you don't see in a lot of color films from the 70s that all have a kind of a grainy quality, whether you're talking about like Taxi Driver or Harry and Tonto, like whatever you're thinking of films from the same time period, 1977, right? When this came out, this is kind of like, the peak of New Hollywood. This film doesn't look like anything from New Hollywood. Yeah. This is so far outside of it. and it doesn't feel like anything from the 70s. This doesn't feel like anything. But it feels like the 90s. Yeah. And that's really interesting to me, that it took like 15 years to filter into pop culture. And so there's something sort of strange watching this now, right? As a middle-aged woman who, was a teenager in the 90s. And so I was exposed to that sort of, the B movies of the 70s, the midnight movies, the cult films that, I knew about, or like I didn't get to watch them until maybe later, but like their ideas were filtered into mainstream in the 90s, right? So, it's not just Eraserhead, but it's Rocky Horror. Rocky Horror was very mainstream by the 90s. And, I'm not going to say Pink Flamingos was mainstream exactly, but John Waters was surprisingly mainstream, right?
But midnight movies did make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, this made $7 million. So.
Right. Like, that's the thing. People want to see these things.
Yeah.
People want to see Night of the Living Dead. What? Night of the Living Dead is one of the greatest films ever made.
Yeah.
This is of the same ilk, right? Where these are all these weirdos making independent films, or independent's kind of a funny way to put it. It depends on what you're talking about. I mean, because again, Lynch, he came up through an interesting system. It was the art schools. It wasn't like George Romero just borrowing equipment from public television to make his movies. It's the same sort of like, we're not part of the mainstream. This isn't Spielberg getting to make studio films, right?
Yeah.
All of that stuff kind of filtered into the 90s, right? So that when I'm watching MTV, all the weirdness and the grossness, and yet when I sit and watch this film, it's still shocking.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, right?
Yeah.
Like, I watched this last night, and I was on Blue Sky, and I remember just typing like, well, that was effed up. How long do I get to take to process this? And like, I needed a day. I really did.
So what's the moment for you that's like effed up? Like, what was the first, or? The chicken?
Yeah, the chicken.
Yeah, chicken's messed up.
Yeah, the chicken's where I was just like, yep, I don't know where we're going with this. All right, so look, we've got a guy, Henry.
Yeah.
And he's like, just this kind of weirdo, nerd, whatever. He lives in a little apartment. He's got a girlfriend it's a contentious relationship. And
hasn't seen her for a while.
He comes across, I guess it's like his neighbor says she's looking for him.
The beautiful woman across the hall.
Yes, and so there's this very strikingly beautiful woman who lives across the hall, and she's tall with dark hair and whatnot. And whereas his on again, off again, I guess we'll call it girlfriend, is blonde hair. Yeah. And if this had been made 10 years later, she'd be played by Laura Dern. And I mean, to extent she was played. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
Because obviously
there's types coming up.
There is types coming up. There are images in this that show up in Twin Peaks.
Oh,
there are people in this that are archetypes that show up in his other films. So you have like the Isabella Rossellini character who is the woman across the hall.
Yeah.
Right? The girlfriend is Laura Dern, right? Mm-hmm. So you have that. And it's just interesting to me how he keeps coming back to certain types of people, certain relationships, certain images. There are images in here that I have seen in Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. Can he explain it? No. And
there's just like a random tree.
Yes. The random tree in his apartment, this naked dead tree. Like I saw that in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a floor with the zigzag lines in it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the lodge, right?
Yeah.
And it leads to the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm watching this, I'm just like I've seen all of this.
And there's like an other world that's just like a curtain.
Yeah.
He's got like this kind of Hollywood otherworld stage.
Always.
In his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Club Silencio and Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. The neighbor tells him, that basically your girlfriend's looking for you, and so she invites him to dinner with her parents, mm-hmm. and he goes to meet with them. It's a very unsettling dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because basically what happened is at some point they had sex, mm-hmm. and he got her pregnant. And we see this happen on screen through a representation of just his head and this sperm cell.
Yeah.
There's a word for that. Whatever. Shoots out of his head, like Athena, mm-hmm. Coming out of Zeus's head. Shoots out of his head. It's like a creepy puppet.
Yeah.
And goes into a puddle. And so this is obviously fertilization, right?
And there's like this planet in the background that maybe is the egg. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Is the planet an egg? Is the planet a cell? Fine, yes.
But inside of the planet, there's a man who's pulling these levers. That I guess is
the man God?
Yeah,
sure. Why not? And just causing these things to happen. Mm. And so he goes to this dinner with the family, and the mother is this kind of scary, domineering person, and she is accusing him of having sex with her daughter, and when he doesn't know how to answer, she tries to make out with him. So you have this whole weird quasi-Oedipal thing going on.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have like the dad who's kind of clueless, and he's this working class guy in a jumpsuit and stuff, and he just kind of goes off on these rambling conversations. And that guy definitely is from Fairmount. And I grew up among so many of those guys.
Yeah.
That whole scene was very familiar.
Yeah.
But I also love how just the geometry of the room is wrong.
Yeah.
Like that. The walls are.
That's
strange.
what reminded me of F.W. Murnau. That one scene in Sunrise where they had the tables on an angle and they like painted the soup so they wouldn't spill. And
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It just felt off. Everything was just weird.
Completely. Yes. Yeah. So it's revealed that she had a baby. The baby's been at the hospital, and the girlfriend is just like, I don't even know if it is a baby. I don't know what this thing is. And you hear that and you go, huh?
And the thing is, like, everything is like, there's these silences are just prolonged everywhere. You equate that with like B movies where people don't know how to act, but this feels so intentional, and it just draws out, like, it makes everything, I don't know, like you feel like there's pressure on your chest watching it. Like,
yeah.
And also we didn't talk about the sound effects. Like the entire time there's hissing. There's like in the parents' house, there's this dog suckling her young.
Yeah.
And so there's these squeaking puppies the entire time, and like most of the time the camera is in there, but every now and then it suddenly switches to the dog looking at him and stuff, and it's just so oppressive. Everything is so oppressive in this movie. It's really intense.
So what we mentioned the chicken was during this dinner, they go to have like a roast chicken, and the chicken
it's a new kind of chicken. It's man-made.
Which I mean that is a thing that exists now. But so it looks like a chicken, even though it's not actually a chicken, I guess.
Yeah.
And it starts to kind of wiggle its legs while on the plate.
Yeah.
And this is a cooked chicken, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, so it wiggles its legs on the plate, and then all of a sudden, like, essentially blood is coming out of the cavity at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it's menstrual.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very weird because it's thick blood. It's menstrual blood coming out of a chicken.
Meanwhile, his future mother-in-law, is like
moaning ecstatically.
Yeah.
Like she's having an orgasm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, it's really unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
I'm
after
just saying a couple things are happening at
Oh
once.
yeah, there's a lot going on. And it's really hard to watch.
Yeah, I think that's when you say this is effed up.
Yeah, that's the part of the movie where you're just like, wow, what am I in for? And we haven't even met the baby yet.
No.
So yeah, all of this is happening,
and we've seen it fly through the air, but we haven't seen it in it's all its glory.
Yep. So yeah, the mother at this point, that's when like the mother's just like, hey, you got her pregnant and she had a baby, and you have to get married now.
Mm-hmm.
And so aside from trying to make out with him, which is they end up having to get married. We don't see the wedding or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But next thing you know, they're living in his one-room apartment, and they have a baby, and the baby is just like
a club.
Well, yeah, I mean it's like, okay, so here's the thing, it's E.T.
Yeah.
with no arms and legs.
Yep.
Just like in a cocoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to talk to who designed E.T. Cause you stole that. You just made like the Eraserhead baby and thought you made it cute. And by the way, E.T. is not cute. E.T. is also scary looking.
Well,
we don't talk enough about the fact that E.T. is kind of nauseating to look at. I love the movie E.T. I have seen it many times. We went to saw it in a drive-in. I've seen that a lot. He is hard to look at. And he ain't that different from this baby. All they did was put legs on that thing.
Ouch.
Yeah. No, E.T. is the baby. E.T. is the baby from Eraserhead. I want to talk to Spielberg. I want to talk to him now. He knows. He knows what he did. Traumatized us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, Lynch accused H.R. Giger, who designed the alien from Alien, and there's some alien-looking things in this.
There are.
He accused him of ripping him off. Giger had approached, Geiger, if you
whatever.
But he approached Lynch about working on Dune, and Lynch was, I guess, miffed at him.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know. Giger is obviously like working on similar lines to Lynch. I don't know if he ripped him off, or they're just both feeling phallic at a certain point. Except it's funny because the baby in this, I think that's a girl. There's something, I don't know why. I truly don't know why.
Is it a girl named Jennifer?
Well, yeah, I know, because this is him reacting to his daughter's birth in a way, but
she was born in Philly. She had a club foot.
Oh, I didn't know she had a club foot.
Yeah.
Oh.
That they had to, they had all these surgeries to fix.
Really? I didn't know about that. Huh. Maybe it was just because I knew that it was, but for some reason I just decided that the baby was a girl.
Yeah.
Hey, she may turn out not to be a girl. But if it was Jennifer Lynch, essentially, yes. Yeah. But yeah, so the baby does look like this weird head, and it's just swaddled in like bandages, and it won't eat, and it cries constantly. And look, I don't spend time around babies. We don't have babies, and whenever my family members had babies, I was around them very like, hey, I'm at a birthday party, I guess. That's it. My experience of babies is very minimal, and they make me very nervous. I don't like babies. Babies kind of creep me out. So maybe this movie was made for me because I'm just like, yeah, I think I'd react the same way to having a baby. I don't like this. That baby won't stop crying. I would freak out too. I don't know how I would handle that.
I mean, it's like, cats and dogs too. Like when you try to
yeah,
leave
but I
and
can
it starts
put
barking.
I can put the cat in the basement for the night and tell it to like just eat your kibble and leave me alone because you're being like mean to, the dog or whatever. Like you can't do that with a baby. You can't like isolate a baby like that. They're a baby. They don't know any better as opposed to a 13-year-old cat that should know better. I mean, I just, like, that's why I feel so uneasy with babies is because you can't reason with them. You can't tell them you have to do this and here's why you have to do this. That's not how babies work. And that's why I don't really want to be around small creatures because it's like, how do you reason with them? I'm just saying it's good we didn't have kids.
Yeah.
I don't know. Makes me nervous, man.
He had other kids. He figured it out.
Yeah, I'm just saying I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But no, anyway, yeah, so the baby is unsettling and, it just keeps crying. And eventually this drives Mary, the girlfriend, the mother, away and says, like, I can't deal with this anymore and I'm going back to my parents' house. I certainly understand the impulse.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's how you I don't know that you could do that for more than one night if you're a responsible person. But, yeah, I think at least one night I'd be like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have, like, incredible sound design, as you said. Like, there's all these sorts of noises, and, like, there's the knocking through the radiators.
I think they spent, like, a year just working on that.
I believe it.
It's a very small crew, because they didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah, as we said, she runs off, and he's stuck with the baby, and things get weird. I mean, I know they're already weird, but they get even weirder. So, for instance, he ends up having an encounter with the woman across the hall, the striking brunette, and
she locked her keys.
Yes, and they end up having sex at one point, and
or whatever you call that.
Well,
they sink into a volcano of milk.
Hey, look, I can read. Yeah. Symbols, all right? I'm pretty sure they had sex. Yeah. Okay. But like, so that happens, and then other weird stuff happens where like he has these visions of a woman who lives in the radiator, and he finally actually encounters the woman, and she's wearing like, an A-frame dress and has like a bouffant hairdo, but these insane cheeks.
Yeah.
The like these weird plaster cheeks that are like coming out. So it's almost like a Cupid doll that's gone sour.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what she looks like to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she's singing to him, And again, it's very much like his whole idea of these other worlds that exist. And, like the lodge or whatever. And this is the same sort of thing. Like, here's this weird otherworld person who is, like, kind of singing to him. And I don't know what she represents exactly, but she's there. And, you have all these kind of, like I said, you have all these kind of...
I almost see it like... He sees the regular world as ugly and mean and terrible, and he sees movies as an escape. And it's not necessarily a better world, but it's a different world.
I could see that, yeah.
That's how I at least see this other world.
So you see her as the personification of movies?
Movies are just like
art in
dreams.
General.
Yeah,
well, you said
or something.
You said recently that movies are dreams.
Yeah,
and I think this is something that Lynch obviously believed.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that she is like kind of a representation of like.
It's more that I feel like they lend themselves to being dreams. I don't know if everybody makes movies that way.
Sure,
but I think the good ones or the ones that I like tend to latch onto that and they lean into it, and I don't know, because you're going into like this room, the lights go down, everybody's facing one direction, and everybody's hearing the same thing, and you just kind of melt into one person for 2 hours. I don't know. Yeah,
no, I think you're absolutely right. The woman living in the radiator. And he's having these visions, and at one point he has a vision of his own head coming off.
Well, that's after she's stamping on babies.
Oh yeah. Well, are they babies or are they sperm?
Sperm, whatever.
It's the same thing. It's basically the same thing. But yeah, the woman in the radiator at one point, she's singing, and she's stepping on all of these like sperm cells.
Yeah.
And make of that what you will. That's the thing. Like, I don't want to try to interpret things too much because I don't think you can. Honestly, like, I mean, here's the thing. You absolutely can try to interpret it. That doesn't mean you have the final say on what any of this means. And I still don't know what any of this means. Like, I'm still puzzling it out for myself, how I'm reacting to it. And really, it comes down to how you react to it.
I feel like Lynch's, like, refusal to, just answer those questions is kind of like Tolkien's, like, stop trying to find a direct analogy.
Right.
For my stuff.
Or stop trying to...
it's applicable, but it's not...
Or stop trying to figure out what the deal with Tom Bombadil is.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think, frankly, as the song says, let the mystery be.
Yeah.
We don't know everything. We don't know why we react to everything. And, not everything can be categorized and not everything can be slapped, with a label from Carl Linnaeus or anything like that. We can't figure everything out. And the most, to some extent, trying to find an answer for things becomes prescriptive and not helpful. And what you want is not necessarily, what does this symbol mean? And what you want to ask is, why is it making me feel the way I feel? It's not, what does this mean? It is, why am I reacting this way?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to, engage with his work.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way to engage with a lot of work, actually. Don't be trying to, play with it like it's a puzzle box. It's not. It's not about that. It's about your own reaction.
I think some people make it that way.
No. Yeah, and those people suck.
But with
I
his
watched
work,
Lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't make Lost.
Yeah.
I'm still mad.
If there's anything you take away from this podcast, or what 170 whatever episodes we've done, don't make Lost.
I'm still mad.
Yeah. We loved Lost, and then we hated Lost.
Yeah, I loved it until the last episode.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have a plan. Yeah. And the thing is, when you set something up as a puzzle box, and then you don't deliver, now you've just disappointed everybody. Yeah. When you let it have a mystery, and you never say you're going to solve the mystery, you just say, yes, there's a mystery. Mm-hmm. The end. That's okay. That's fine.
It should have ended with Jack just kissing the girl with the cheeks.
Shh.
What?
Kissing the girl with the cheeks?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
The girl in this
movie.
Are
you saying that the show Lost should have ended with Jack, played by Matthew Shepard, Matthew Fox or whatever. Matthew Shepard, Jesus Christ. Matthew Fox. Look, if they had actually ended it that way, I would have respected it. I would have understood it because I had not seen this movie.
Probably wouldn't have liked it, but...
Well, I'd rather not have a mystery solved. So he has that vision, and then he has his vision. And I guess they're visions, so I don't know how else to, because they're not, reality insofar as the next thing that happens is... he has this vision of like his own head coming off and a kid taking it to a pencil factory where it is turned into a series of erasers. It's
funny when you see the head fall off and like it lands in a puddle, like the baby and all.
Yeah.
But like and his head is replaced with the baby head and stuff. It's fun.
I thought it looked like King Koopa from Mario Brothers.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
You gotta see that movie.
But
I'm gonna make you watch it. It's not good, but I'm gonna make you watch it.
But I was thinking it reminded me of a Terry Gilliam animation from Monty Python.
Sure.
Like just those weird, something pops off and just like bounces around and people just grab it and move it around and
definitely. Yeah.
It had that kind of absurdist thing. So yeah, the kid picks it up and takes it to a room where I forget who the guy is, but he just seemed like a character from like a Jim Jarmusch film.
Yeah, he did.
He just seemed like this kind of like lazy hipster,
Yeah. I feel like the other guy who is in that scene, I've seen him on other things too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple actors in here where I'm just like, and like not necessarily Lynch things. There was, what did I see him in? It doesn't matter. Yeah. But I did see him in something else. Yeah, and so he has this, like his head being turned into erasers, and ergo Eraserhead. What does that mean? I don't know. I don't, does it mean anything? Maybe. Who knows? But then, next thing you know, we're back to his room, and the baby won't stop crying, and he decides to start taking the bandages off the baby. This is the end of the film.
This is after he thinks he hears the beautiful woman across the hall.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He goes to the door and sees that she's with another man, and she kind of looks at him like, ew, you. He closes the door and he's like upset, and then the baby starts cackling and I'm like,
yeah,
oh
so his wife has left him to go back to her parents and abandon him with the baby. And now the woman across the hall doesn't want anything to do with him, and she's with a new guy. So, yeah, the baby starts like making all these noises, and he takes scissors to take the bandages off the body, only to find out that was the body.
Yeah.
That's all there was. That there was no skin holding this baby together. It was just the gauze. And so now all the organs are exposed, and the baby is like freaking out. And he takes the scissors and starts puncturing the organs.
And it gets gross.
It gets very gross.
Just stuff comes out everywhere.
Yep. And then the baby just starts to grow and grow and grow.
You know what I thought the baby looked like then? I thought it looked like that that one creature from Dune, the big one that's in the I forget who he was, like Inquisitor, I don't know. I forget what.
Oh gosh, it's been a long time since we watched that.
Yeah, it's the big worm that's in that bus tank.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's right.
No, I know. I do know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think you're right. Has he killed the baby? The baby's now expanding. What's happening? There's like foam coming out of the body and stuff, and like it just gets weird. I don't know exactly what's happening here. Nobody else knows exactly what's happening here, and that's okay. And then all of a sudden, we're back to the lady inside the radiator, and he's with her, and she embraces him, and that's the end of the film.
Yeah, everything goes white.
Okay, buddy.
It's like a little. She has a little bit of vibes of like the good witch from Wizard of Oz.
Glinda.
Yeah, Glinda.
Yeah. Who, of course, is there at the end of Wild at Heart.
Yeah, it had that Wild of Heart ending.
Well, okay, so can we talk a little bit? Again, there's stuff in here I've seen him do in other things, right?
Yeah.
And so, in a way, there is a unified David Lynch series of images. Right, and this is sort of the first iteration of them, but we see them in other places, and there are things, like I said, that you've seen in Twin Peaks and in Blue Velvet and in Mulholland Drive. Like there are things you will see in Twin Peaks: The Return. These are things that keep coming back, and I was thinking about that, and what I find interesting is, okay, Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen King, he starts writing these novels, and all of a sudden, especially with like the Gunslinger books. He starts connecting all of his novels in a way that I don't like.
Yeah.
So that Randall Flagg shows up in all of them as like this villain. And he creates essentially his own universe, united universe of stuff. And look, maybe that works for him. And I don't dislike Stephen King. I've read, many of his books, but I find that kind of annoying, right? That he does that. With Lynch, it feels organic.
Yeah.
This is obviously him just coming back to certain images that, for whatever reason, they are stuck in his head, and he keeps working through them in different ways, right? And it doesn't feel kind of annoyingly I don't want to call what King is doing calculated, because I do think it's also like he genuinely is coming back to these same things over and over again, but it's less artfully done.
Yeah.
And whereas I feel like with Lynch, there's something more. He's working through something that he can't. And maybe even doesn't want to put a name to.
Right.
In a way that King is, I don't know, a little too basic.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But also the other thing, watching this is, we brought up the influences, the 90s definitely, picked up this aesthetic and ran with it. And, we brought up Brothers Quay and like MTV and stuff, but then
Tetsuo, definitely.
Tetsuo absolutely borrowed from this. Tetsuo the Iron Man, we did an episode on that.
Mm-hmm.
Totally comes from this. The movie Pi. Oh man, if you haven't seen Pi, I don't like Darren Aronofsky for the most part. I don't like a lot of his movies. I do like Pi.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because Pi heavily borrows from this. The Coen brothers. Oh man, this is Barton Fink.
Yeah.
Barton Fink lives heavily from this in a way that I really like. And now I want to go and rewatch Barton Fink, and I haven't watched that for a long time.
Yeah,
but
so there's a scene, there's a couple scenes where he'll like hit the button to use the elevator to go up, and it just takes an absurd amount of time for the doors to close. And I feel like Coen Brothers were like, yeah, that's the stuff. There's that one scene where they ring the bell, and then Steve Buscemi like it just rings, then Steve Buscemi like just touches it, but
no. I mean, Barton Fink is obviously their like Lynchian film, right? And I mean, not and just look at John Turturro's hair in that movie. But it's funny. Like I saw Barton Fink a long time ago when I was still young, and so it's so funny that I avoided this movie, right? Because I was scared of it. And I'll tell you what, this movie's messed up.
Yeah.
But its seeds were in everything I watched as a young person. As a teenager. And I wish I had known that.
I get the feeling that like the indie movie boom of like the late 80s, early 90s, like just people are like, oh, we can do surrealism now.
Yeah.
It was like people just felt really free for like 3 years there.
Once Tarantino puts out Pulp Fiction, everything changes.
Yeah, once that comes out, and then all the studios put out their own indie labels, Touchstone and all that, like it all gets swallowed up.
Jim Jarmusch still puts out films, obviously, but like Wes Anderson, a lot of people don't like Asteroid City because it's weird, right?
Yeah.
I love Asteroid City. I think it's brilliant. I honestly, I could sit and talk to you for an hour about why Asteroid City actually works if you understand what he's doing. And, it's probably the closest he'll ever get to doing Lynch, right? It's not Lynchian, but in some ways I can see where it borrows because of its 1950s aesthetics. And that's a weird ending it puts in there, right? With the whole, like, in order to, you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep and all that type of stuff. Like,
I mean, he's too literary for Lynch.
Yeah.
Like, Lynch is not trying to be literary.
No.
He's like all instinct.
Wes Anderson, everything is a little too self-aware.
Yeah.
Too arch to be Lynch. For a lot of people, maybe that movie doesn't fit Wes Anderson, but I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And watching this, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get, when I say I get it now, I don't know what I mean by that. Because do I get Eraserhead? I don't know if I do. But I don't think you have to get it.
I feel like I can't think of any American director that's come close.
No.
Like that has, and partly because like where would they get the funding to do this?
Right. I mean, well, Lynch never got funding.
Yeah.
Look, Martin Scorsese can barely get funding. Killers of the Flower Moon, he had to go to Apple, and they barely put it in the theaters, and like nobody like I mean when I think about the fact that how many of guys who are considered like living greats can't get their own films made. It's not just Lynch and it's not just Scorsese. Like there are people who like Coppola. I didn't see Megalopolis, but the funding for a film is so hard now. There are Lynches out there, and we just can't give them the money.
Well, what I hope is that all the attention that he's gotten, like from dying, I hope that this inspires someone out there. Not necessarily in America. It could be in another country or whatever. I don't know.
What I'm saying is there are already people inspired out there.
Yeah.
They're out there. Nobody's gonna, get them in your eyeballs. That's the problem. That's the world we live in now. It was hard enough for Lynch to get stuff out there. It was really hard for him to get stuff out there. No, I'm serious. Like he would make deals with like Netflix, and Netflix would just cancel on him. Like he was trying really hard.
Do you want to be angered?
Go for it.
All right.
Yeah.
I saw a thing saying, what if David Lynch made a Disney film and it was AI, and it was terrible.
What?
Yeah.
What?
It was, yeah.
What? That doesn't, what? Who?
They just...
Tell me who they are, and I'm going to hunt them down.
Something on Facebook. It was, it's a prompt they put into
first of all, your problem number one is you were on Facebook.
I know.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
We're recording this on the day of the inauguration, and like I'm already in a bad mood. So, anyway. Yeah. Look.
One thing we skipped over, there was that shrimp thing. So he gets this shrimp in the mail. It's like you can't even tell what it is. It's like he's like playing with his fingers, and you can't really see it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if on a bigger screen, maybe you could tell. I don't know.
Yeah, we watched this at home, and that was fine. I don't know if,
I'm always curious if like a bigger screen will show different things.
It often does. You're absolutely right. It often does. And, I wish the midnight movie would come back. And unfortunately, nobody's making midnight movies now.
One other thing, did I mention this before, that Kubrick was a fan of this?
I think you may have mentioned it in the pre-show, but I don't remember.
I guess he told Lynch that it was his favorite film, and that he was showing it to the cast and crew of
The Shining. Yeah.
To get them in the mood. He's like, this is what I want it to be.
That's interesting to connect The Shining to this, because, again, it's about, bad fathers.
Yeah.
You know who else is, this is their favorite movie, supposedly?
Who's that?
John Waters.
Yeah.
Now that makes sense to me, actually.
One of my favorite pictures is that picture of them in front of Bob's Big Boy shaking hands.
I love it.
Like smiling at, both of them are smiling at us, the world. And it just feels like, we're going to take care of all you freaks out there.
That's exactly what it is. I'm like, I want you guys to be my uncles.
Because I just feel like of all the weird people I know that I treasure, they like one or both of them.
Yes.
Exactly.
I've yet to be disappointed by anything I've seen of David Lynch. It's sort of weird. I feel like because I'm not a completist and I haven't seen everything, I'm like, am I allowed to say I love David Lynch? But no, I'm serious.
See, I feel like that's a 21st century thing, because like before in the 20th century, there's no way you could own everything of anything. That's
true.
And,
so
there was a lot of times you'd consider yourself a fan of something and only own like an album of theirs, or and you wouldn't even own a movie, because
that's a good point.
It's $99 for a videotape.
So can I say I love David Lynch as a filmmaker?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're there.
Yeah. All right.
Fandom. Seen everything. I haven't seen Inland Empire. There's that hotel thing. I forget what it's called. There's like a hotel sitcom that he made.
I don't know that. Are you familiar with On the Air?
That's what. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. You know what? That you can find that online. Actually, we'll sit down and watch it.
Yeah,
it's got David Lander in it.
You should see that. It's Industrial Symphony No. 1.
Right.
It's called.
Yeah.
That's the Julie Cruz concert thing.
So that was Eraserhead, starring Jack Nance, Charlotte Stewart, Alan Joseph, Jeanne Bates, Judith Roberts, Laurel Neer, Jack Fisk. Hal Landon Jr. was in this, actually. Jennifer Lynch actually shows up as a little girl. Written and directed, of course, by David Lynch.
The Fisk.
Yeah, what about him, Fisk?
He was the man in the planet.
Yes.
He was actually the producer. He was also an old friend of Lynch. And he and his wife, Sissy Spacek, basically kept it going for like the 5 years, like funding and all.
And Fisk has had a long career in film.
He's
set design.
He's like an art director for Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
For like his first 8 films and most of Lynch's films, and he was was it the that one that you loved at Scorsese, recent one?
Oh yeah, that's right. He was Killers of the Flower Moon. Yeah.
So he's just all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, everything great, it seems like he's worked on.
All right. You can follow us on social media. We're Mary vs. Movies on all of your major platforms, except I don't think I can keep going on to X anymore. That dude gave a Nazi salute today. I can't do that. So yeah, I don't want to be on X anymore. But and look, is Facebook any better? No, not really, but we're still there on Instagram, and we have a Facebook page. That one's gonna be harder to disengage
still on
from.
Threads.
Yeah, well, that's Instagram. That's they're all tied together, but that's. We're on Blue Sky. Blue Sky's nice.
And
we're on Mastodon. Are you on Mastodon? Nobody's on Mastodon. I'm on Mastodon, but we're on that, and let's see, we're on. I feel like there's something else that we're
Tumblr,
but Tumblr I can't seem to update it, so we haven't updated the Tumblr in months. But we just got a Discord server, so yeah, we're Mary versus the Movies on Discord, and I put a link out on our Blue Sky account, so you can find it that way. So yeah, come join the party on Discord. We have a Patreon where you can help support the show, Mary vs. Movies, on Patreon. And aside from helping to defray the cost, because as you have noticed, we are not on a network, we don't have ads. This is just me and Dennis making this show. I have to go and buy a new laptop because I spilled a seltzer all over it on Christmas. So yeah, a bunch of our keys aren't working on here. I'm able to record, but that's about it. I can't write anything. So yeah, we have patreon.com/Mary vs. Movies. If you sign up for that, one, for $3 a month, you help support us to help pay all this stuff. Two, we get access to our second show, Hollywood Avalon, where we watch Arthurian movies. And that is, look, if it's got King Arthur somehow related to it, we will watch it. And so that's everything from the weird folk horror French erotica film Morgan Le Fay, like the sex nymphs of Morgan Le Fay, to Excalibur, to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, to a bunch of Bugs Bunny cartoons. If it's Arthurian, we will watch it and we will talk about it. So if you sign up for the Patreon, you get access to our other show that comes out once a month. If you do sign up for the Patreon, do not use the app on Apple because they will add like an extra surcharge and you don't need to be paying that. So go to a browser and sign up that way. Let's see. Yeah, what else? We're available on all of your major podcasting platforms, Apple and Spotify and YouTube. And you can always get our RSS feed from the Libsyn website and plug it into whatever your podcatcher of choice is. Yeah, so this was sort of an emergency episode insofar as David Lynch just passed away, and I really wanted to cover this, so here we are. We will be back to regular programming next week when we will be watching the movie Moonraker. Boy, what a change in quality that is. So we're going from, David Lynch's classic Eraserhead to Moonraker, one of the not great James Bond films, right?
What a trio of films. Boys of Brazil, Eraserhead, Moonraker.
That's the 21st century for you, baby.
It really is.
Even though they're all from the 70s. I mean, we're basically just living in the long 70s, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, next week we will be back and it will be Moonraker and hopefully I will have a new laptop then. So anyway.
And no cold.
And hopefully no cold. Yeah, I apologize to everybody listening. I have a cold. We just came back from vacation in Florida. We were in Disney World and it's filled with scary looking babies who cough on you. I don't know why this film is resonating with me. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, hopefully by the next time you hear me again, I will not sound like this. So, until next time.
Oh, you are sick.
Hey!